Iowa football faces some big questions in 2025, and today we look to answer them. What we're looking for at today's Iowa Football Media Today on Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network. You can hear me each weekday from noon to 2, talking the world of sports on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with stations in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, the Quad Cities, Des Moines, and Sioux City. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It is Media Day today. We will take a look at the big storylines and the stories we will be chasing as we get a look at it. Also, Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com is going to join us in what real improvement looks like in the Iowa offense, one of the many questions we're going to be searching for. But when it comes to today, later this afternoon, it will be Iowa Football Media Day. We will hear from Kirk Ferentz. We will hear from almost all of the coaches, trying to get all the different audio and trying to get all the questions that you want out there. And it's fun. It's kind of crazy. And also you got, of course, what's happening over on the other side of things with all the players and the ability to hear from Mark Gronowski for the first time, really in that kind of setting. There's been a couple of scrums, but this is different. There's more media there, so it is different than kind of your day-to-day beat guys that are going to be there. Let's get into, though, a couple of those major questions and some of these storylines that I think are most pertinent to what we're looking for with this Iowa football team. You start with the quarterback, obviously. We've talked a ton about Mark Gronowski. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about Mark Gronowski, and we'll lay off that at least in the here and now for this conversation, because that goes without saying. I do want to hear, though, a little bit about that backup quarterback spot. And though I have long believed that Hank Brown is going to be the guy, the Auburn transfer is going to be the backup for this season, we've heard a ton about Jeremy Hecklinski, the Wake Forest transfer, who comes in as a redshirt freshman, small guy, built differently than Hank Brown, but really like what we've heard about Hecklinski. Jackson Stratton a year ago, he won a couple of games for Iowa, and he was the starting quarterback and was there for the Nebraska game. Now, he didn't have to do much in that game and didn't do much in that game. Still, he was a quarterback there. What they did when they went out to Maryland and rolled in that football game. And there's people, going back to the spring that really like him. So obviously the backup quarterback spot is one of those things we're going to be looking for and chasing. Speaking of position groups, we still don't know how things are going to shake out after the top running back spot. It'll be Kamari Moulton. Is TJ Washington, Terrell Washington Jr., is he going to be the guy that is number 2? Jazion Patterson, obviously a longtime guy, has stuck around. Has he won that backup role? Or is it going to be one of those youngsters? And we've talked a ton about Xavier Williams. We've talked about the freshman Nathan McNeil and talk about an absolute surprise. You look at the recruiting services and where he was and what he's been able to put together already in his short time. And of course, Brevin Dahl with that elite speed that he has, coupled with the size that he has, and now looking like going to be a little bit healthy, and that'll be a good thing for him. Wide receiver, what's it going to be? We saw the highlight video from Ries and that led to a highlight video that had to come the other way because the guy that was beat both times was Deshaun Lee. So a little bit later, what do? They give you a highlight video for Deshaun Lee. Good to see that, because I'm sure he's had good moments, but we know how social media is. We know how fandom is. We know, well, how some podcast hosts are, and maybe overreact a little bit to what we see, because all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't be Deshaun Lee as the cornerback opposite TJ Hall. Is it Barrows? Is it going to be one of the young guys? Well, they put that out maybe to ease some of those fears. From there, after the wide receiver group, and I just want to see the depth of that one. Is that depth real? Is this something that is really clicking? And the emergence of some of those young guys at the wide receiver spot. That's another thing we're going to be chasing and talking to the players. And a lot of times, not all the time, but many times they will give you some insight into that and give you an idea of what they're seeing in practice. And that's an ability kind of to put things together on that front. Offensive line, the biggest one offensively, is something we've talked about a ton, and we will continue to, and that is the left tackle position. Now, as we look towards Saturday and the open kids practice and what we're going to see on that front, really what your hope is and what you're biggest hope is that everybody's healthy. It's not going to be an off day. We're going to see everybody on the offensive line, because that's another piece of it too. Not just what happens at left tackle, but if they're given a day off to Jennings Dunker, if they're giving a day off to one of the interior guys, or they're just a little bit banged up, and what that does and kind of the fluctuation that happens on that offensive line. More than anything, I want to see all 5 guys that would be starting, or how they work with those different left tackles, and how Bryce George is acclimating himself at that left tackle spot. Obviously, the guys that have been around with Jack Doetzler and Trevor Lauk. So that's going to be a huge one also to be keeping an eye on coming up here. On the defensive side of the football, after the guys that we knew on that defensive line, and with the announcement that Jeremiah Pittman's still going to be out a little bit longer with knee surgery, what that's going to mean to that rotation at defensive tackle. Is it going to be Jonah Pace, super senior from Central Michigan, as Bryce Hawthorne done enough out of South Dakota State, or even the guys that have hung around, who's going to be opposite Aaron Graves? It's going to be a rotation. Want to keep guys fresh, but keeping an eye on that front. And then the young emergence at the defensive line. That's what I really want to find out is, a guy like a Joseph Anderson, what Shanike is doing, those kind of players. We know Kenneth Merriweather, Brian Allen, they're now moving into that more veteran sphere, that next group, those redshirt freshmen that came in last year, kind of what they're doing at both defensive tackle, the guy like Devin Kennedy, and then at the defensive end position with some of the guys that we mentioned there. Linebacker remains the biggest question defensively, how that's looking, how that's shaking out, and do any of the 3 redshirt freshmen have a chance to pop here? Are we going to see on the field, not special teams, but actually out there in defensive situations? Are we going to see a Preston Ries, who's got so much buzz? A Cam Buffington, are we going to see him? Are we going to see Derek Weisskopf? Those are the guys, the redshirt freshmen on that defensive line group out of the linebacker group. Certainly something that I'm going to be chasing and looking to see if any of the other people are going to be giving us some information. And then finally, the defensive backfield. Again, these are all kind of the storylines that we've been talking about a lot during the spring and into the summer, but these are the important times of trying to get some answers to these questions that we've been posing, that we've been speculating about, that we've been passing along the little bit of information that we get, and trying to make that all kind of make sense together. But when you talk about the defensive backfield, just mention Deshaun Lee. That's going to be a huge part of it. What's going to happen there? The move for Xavier Wampa over to free safety, and what the cash position is going to look like. After talking to Cohen Entringer, being in Big Ten football media days a couple weeks back, and hearing him talk about the cash position, is it his alone? Now, if he's healthy, is that going to be his spot? And maybe when they go to a traditional 4-3 or different situations, is he going to be moving back? Want to see how that looks like, and if it is Cohen Entringer, or if we're going to see Zach Lutmer, and 2 guys that are going to be able to do it kind of in different ways, if that's something that Iowa and Phil Parker is looking to do. So there's a lot. And there's a lot that we're going to begin to gather, try to figure some things out, and put this all together as we look forward to just a couple weeks away from Iowa football actually beginning. Saturday, open practice. And then Monday, we will hear from the Big Ten Network crew as they'll get their look at things happening there. So it's a lot going on, and we got you covered as we always do here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Your team every day. That's what we do on the Locked On Network. And I talk Hawkeyes with you each and every day. Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report, he is going to be at Media Days. We'll get his report on what he expects to see, what he's going to be talking about, and what he's going to be searching for. Big Iowa football storylines with Tom Kakert when we come back on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. I love jumping aboard with some same-game parlay actions. I love taking a look and seeing if I can take a little and make it into a lot and get myself ready for football season. New to FanDuel, new customers, you can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Bet just $5 for new customers and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com.
Tom Kakert joins us as we are about a little more than an hour away from the start of Media Day. Kirk Ferentz meets the media first, and then off they go to talk to players. Hello, Tom Kakert. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just pulled into Big Grove here. Going to have
nice
little bite to eat with my friend Pat Angerer before we go over to Media Day.
That's awesome.
Keep him in line. I mean, he can't be slugging beers before he goes to Media Day. He's a media member now. Come on, Angerer.
I know. So we're just kind of chilling out. So.
Yeah, that's good. Good to see. Well, I guess what's the question that lingers in your mind? Tom, as maybe Ferentz will address it or not. I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to ask him. What's the one question that you would like to hear? Maybe a little clarity on, maybe a little insight to. What's kind of out there for you?
Boy, that's a great question. Last year it was like the suspension stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
wild. Still the wildest thing, but I would guess probably open jobs. What job? And I know he'll have his Pat answer of, boy, every job is open really, but if Logan Jones loses it, boy, it'd be something, just he kind of dances around it. But what's the corner competition? I mean, we all saw the video.
Yeah.
So, and they strategically put out a positive video for Deshaun Lee the next day, which was nice of them to do. But I think defensive back, in the interview he had on the Fight for Iowa podcast thing that they did the other day with Dolph, he mentioned defensive tackle being up in the air. I'm curious about that position because he said Jeremiah Pittman's still not healthy. So, who's going to get reps there besides Aaron Graves? And then he kind of mentioned middle linebacker. So I'm curious about what's going on there too. So I think there's some stuff mainly on defense, and then the offense, left tackle. I'm curious about. I haven't seen, and again, we get these little clips and we look at them like there's a Pruder film, but but it is I haven't seen Bo Stevens in anything, and there's been a little bit of rumbling that maybe one of the offensive linemen is dinged up, and so maybe we'll get some clarity there too.
Oh boy. And as we look at then tomorrow, of course, open practice, the only real look that we're going to get at this team, I was just hopeful more than anything.
Well, Monday, Big Ten Network's there.
Right. But the one that we actually get, not the ones that the Big Ten Network and cut and dice, we get our eyes on something. And I just want to see 5 offensive linemen out there. Well, Stevens is out, then you're moving people over. Maybe Bryce George is then playing guard instead of tackle. And it's going to lead to, well, what we do anyway, a lot more speculation. It doesn't look like tomorrow, at least with the offensive line, then we're probably going to get many answers, Tom. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think I'm curious what he's going to say about any potential people missing or guys are just temporarily out, or if it's long-term. My sense is, just talking to a few people, that if anybody's out, it's more short-term than long-term, and it's just kind of being careful in camp. And so I don't suspect that there's any alarm bells yet, and it's frankly probably good for guys like Leighton Jones to get time with the ones, or maybe Mike Zielinski gets a shot there, or Bryce George, somebody like that. I think they'll be okay, but it's interesting what's going, just because we read into everything these days because we don't have access. So we're looking at every little grain of video to find out if we can figure something else out.
I'm anxious to read the reports on Mark Gronowski. See him for the first time and see how the receivers are doing. If he's, if he maybe has picked out a favorite or something, maybe a favorite target at this point. I'm anxious to see him. What happened to McNamara? Did he get hurt in this practice 2 years ago? Right, it was, right?
2 years ago.
Oh boy.
Took off in the middle of practice and went down in a heap, and everybody went, there was a collective groan, like, oh no. And then, it was obviously hindered him early on, and then, eventually gets hurt again. And it's just,
those were the days.
It did not go well.
The Iowa quarterback position since Nate Stanley left has been Although, you know what?
I'm with you. Say it.
20. He wasn't terrible.
He wasn't.
20.
He got worse.
And then he got hurt.
Yep.
And then it was just sort of got messy.
And he answered every single question. I give him a hell of a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
He did. He stood in there and took every AD.
Absolutely.
He stood in there.
Benter Peaches.
Better than Cade McNamara running away from the team and quitting.
Yeah, fair point.
And nobody will ever convince me that he did not quit on that team a year ago. That's where Spencer Petras gets credit. The football side of things, hard to do. Hard to do. Well, we're in the here and now. One thing that I guess maybe stumbled upon here in the last week or so, talking about Gronowski and Tom, as you know, I have my daily podcast and we're looking for content.
Give it a plug, Trent.
Locked On Hawkeyes.
There you go.
Every single day. So sometimes you're repeating yourself doing that every single day.
No way, really?
Talking Gronowski, though, it's the running ability. I went back and watched it was like a condensed version of a full game. It was like cut down to 30 minutes. And watching him in the game, I think he only ran it like 10, 11 times. But it's not just he's physical. We knew that. He's a big dude. He's got some wiggle to him. I think the running ability just as a whole, maybe we forgot about or has been underrepresented. And coming off that shoulder injury, I guess that might be a question too. Is he ready to take that pounding now physically? Because that's one of his stronger attributes, running the football.
I think if you're going to ask Tim Lester how much he wants Mark Gronowski running, it's going to be not much.
Yeah.
But I think if you ask Gronowski, because we did, and he was like, yeah, I'll go get, if that first read's not there, I'm willing to tuck it under my shoulder and get those 3 or 4 yards that I need to get on third down and short to get the first down and get the chains moving again. So I think he's more than willing to do that. I think there might be a little bit of a tug of war with him and Tim Lester, but I don't think Lester's opposed to it. I've thrown out the Riley Leonard comparison since he arrived. I think that's an apt comparison. But then I looked, I was like, wait, how much did Riley Leonard run? So I wrote a piece this week about the expectations this year statistically for Gronowski. Riley Leonard ran for 900 yards last year. I was like, holy cow. Iowa hasn't had a guy run over 400 since Brad Banks had 423.
Has it been that long?
And Gronowski averaged just about, it was 397 his last 3 years at SDSU. So I think that's probably a realistic number for him, is around 400. And if he did that, that would be a positive for the Iowa offense. And just to have a guy who can extend plays. You saw that one clip of him rolling out and throwing on the run. When was the last time we saw that competently done by an Iowa quarterback? It's been a minute. It's been Nate Stanley probably since that was really an executed play, and he hits Weege on the sidelines and perfect spot. And I think we're in for some good times with this quarterback. I really do. I think nationally he's going to get some talk fairly early, especially if they go to Ames and win and he plays well there.
You mentioned Caden Weechin, obviously back as a kick returner, punt returner after what he did a season ago. He's on all the watch lists, as you'd anticipate. But in the spring, we heard one of the ways that he was going to come back or was assurances that they were going to try to use him at least a little bit more offensively. A wide receiver room, though, that has Ries Vanderzee and Jacob Gill and a healthy Seth Anderson and Sam Phillips coming in out of Chattanooga and Howard and KJ Parker, who we've heard. Are there going to be many reps available for him? What have you heard about his fall practice and if they're going to find a role for Weechin in the offense?
Yeah, I think he's been really good. Parker's been really good. Vanderzee, obviously, you saw the video highlight of him. He's been solid. And Kirk admitted in the thing with golf that the first couple of days, Mark was a little shaky, just kind of shaking some of the rust off. And that would make sense. I mean, he hasn't been out there in 11-on-11 since the end of the South Dakota State season. So, he's got a little rust, didn't do spring ball. So, he's stepping up a little bit here and now he's adjusted and I think pretty comfortable offensively and developing that chemistry. He went on that trip with, I think it was Trent, you'll have to come in. I think it was Gill, Parker, Phillips, and Ostrenga, I think, were the guys that went with him down to Texas.
Was it Texas? Okay.
Yeah, with to work with Jeff Christensen.
Jeff Christensen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember
Of
that
all
now.
people.
Yep. Yeah, really.
The Jeff Christensen. Yeah. Of all people, Jeff Christensen.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Can't shake them. Can't shake them. You used the word expectations earlier, Tom. Is this, and I hate to say it, phrase the question this way, because I don't think that the expectations were unfair when it came to Xavier Wampka. I mean, Trent, you said you never seen a player like this in high school.
No.
And you've covered high school football for a long time.
He covered as much ground as anybody I'd ever
played
seen.
both sides of the ball and did so effectively. What kind of years do you expect from him? Or is this the year that he comes close to those lofty expectations?
I think so. Just talking to him this spring, it felt like playing strong safety was like asking him to play left-handed. And he just was never comfortable with it to the level that you would hope he would be. And now he's at free and he feels comfortable. And I think we're going to see a really good year from him. I think he's going to have, 5 or 6 interceptions, and I think he's going to make some big plays for the Iowa defense this year. I think he and Entringer potentially, we'll see where Entringer ends up, if it's strong safety or Ash, but I think that back end is going to be pretty fun to watch, especially if Entringer's back there.
Full circles, we started talking a little bit about the linebackers, and one thing that I heard is feels like Jaden Harrell's going to be that guy in the middle. Don't sleep on Montgomery. That was something I was told the other night, which I found interesting. But that aside, do you anticipate, I mean, they've moved to, it's not full-time, but they go cash, 70% of the time, 80% of the time, that they're going to rely on that even more because of the questions at linebacker. They like Lepner. They obviously like the other two safeties we just talked about with Entringer and Wampa, that we see even more cash this season.
I asked Phil this summer, I said, how much did you guys run cash last year? And he said 80% of the time.
Was that
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can go any higher. And then, unless they do it full time, but I think it's probably something where they're going to go cash about 80% of the time. And I think that's the way they like it. I think that's the way college football is going. And there'll be some teams or some situations, 3rd and short, they'll bring in an extra linebacker and Rex Ross will get some time. But yeah, I'm really curious about the middle linebacker. The Montgomery thing made sense too, because the video clip the other day, I saw Montgomery was out there at middle linebacker. So I think he's given a little push right now. I know they're super high on, excited about Preston Ries too. So that's another guy to watch.
And we'll watch it and we'll read it about it at HawkeyeReport.com, part of On3 Media Day coverage today and the Kids Day tomorrow, and away we go. Tom Kakert, you got a busy weekend ahead of you, Tom. Thanks for doing this. We'll keep up to date at HawkeyeReport.com.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you coming on. Talk to you next week.
Trent Condon back with you one final time. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. If you're watching us over on YouTube, make sure you're hitting subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast side, 5-star reviews as we're pushing towards 5,000 subscribers over on our YouTube page. And you can help us out over there and help us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. So we've talked a lot about the improvement, and my final thought here leading into the weekend, leading into media day, and leading into the open practice is just this. What does improvement look like? You look at the statistical profile, and they basically cut it in half a year ago, went from the decrepit 129th in the country and cut that in half. Well, cutting in half again is talking about a top 35 type of offense. And is that a realistic possibility? Because though we saw the changes a year ago offensively, we saw what they did in the running game. We know that they are going to work to incorporate more into this passing game, and that is the hope going forward of what that's going to look like. And when we have that, it's all well and good. However, we also have to have the understanding. It's not that I was going to be running at a pace where they're going to be getting off 80, 85, 90 snaps a game. They're not going to play at that pace. There is still going to be complementary football. It's still going to be a component, and that's still going to be a big piece of way that Kirk Ferentz relies. So when that improvement comes, it has to be more than just the statistical profile. I think there has to be a deeper look into what this is going to be and what it's going to look like this season. I'm a believer. And as Tom mentioned, there were some shaky moments the first couple of days of camp from Gronowski. It was knocking the rust off. But since then, things have been good. And the offense is starting to catch up. And you anticipate, regardless of the level of football, defense is going to be ahead of the offense at this point. However, that gap is closing. And it sets up what is going to be a really big Saturday in this open practice when we get our eyes on this team and what they're going to be and what they're going to look like. I'm incredibly excited for it. I'm hoping that the health is there, but maybe the most concerning element that Tom brought up was a potential injury to Bo Stevens. And if that is the case, if Bo Stevens is out, even if he's just banged up right now, and trying to figure out that continuity. Kirk talks about right guard. It feels like Cade Pieper's going to be that guy, but maybe that's not the lock that I think a lot of us had throughout the course of this year. And one thing that is, I think, driven all of us nuts at one time or the other in the Kirk Ferentz tenure has been when we get to the season, the tinkering that is still happening with that offensive line. The offensive line a year ago was very veteran, also had veteran depth, something that they don't have this year compared to what they had a season ago. And you felt like you had your solid starting group, and then you had guys with that experience. Well, that's not the case here. And that makes me pump the brakes. As I mentioned to Tom, I want to see this offensive line as a whole. Doesn't sound like we're going to see that tomorrow. A frustrating element. The element we're going to have to deal with, though, and this team. Hope you enjoy Kinnick coming up tomorrow. You're able to make it out there and watch the Kids Day open practice. If you have kids as well, it's great. Years and years ago, I took my nephew to this event, and a really good time with that, getting the autographs, getting to see the guys up close and personal. Really cool if you got a youngster to get them involved in that direction. I will be back with you on Monday. Hope you have a great weekend. We will have a full recap of everything from this weekend from Iowa Football Media Day, what we hear there, and also, of course, what we have coming from you from Kids Day, as we will be back with you more than likely late Sunday night into Monday morning here on your feed. Again, hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. 5-star review on the podcast side. Thanks to everyone out there. Thanks to you everydayers with us each and every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. We'll talk to you again Monday. Until then, go Hawks.